What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Michael here, Shy City Yacker, and if you're new here, welcome for sure, and definitely hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications. Today, I get to share with you my all-new Old Town Sportsman 136 autopilot kayak that I just picked up. In fact, you can see my initial on-the-water impressions right above. You can click that link to see that video. Right now, I'm going to share with you more of a detailed kind of a breakdown review video, share with you things that I like and some things that I really do not like with this kayak, and I'll see if you agree with it or not. So we'll kind of go from there. And I'm going to share with you how I've rigged it up to maybe give you some ideas if you're planning to pick this thing up or if you picked one up recently. Let's go ahead and go from the very front and work our way towards the back. Let's get started. All right, let's go ahead and start at the front. I'm gonna show you what I did here. Obviously, I shoot videos for my YouTube channel, and I needed to have a way to put the camera up here at the front, which is what I like. I like the very front view, kind of head level shot where you can get most of like the wide view of everything, get to see some of the rods in the frame. That's just kind of what I like. It seems to be the view that a lot of you guys like as well. And so I needed to figure out how I was going to do this. So there's enough space here in the front to put a 4-piece inch of gear track, which is exactly what I did. Self-threading, put a little marine goop on there to help seal it. And that is where I place my mount to then get the framed shot of what we get right here for the most part, right? Maybe a little higher. And I also needed to power it. And this time around, what I did differently is I went with the Nakwa USB charging port, which is right here. And I mounted it right here. So that way I can simply just mount my camera, run the USB cord straight into here, and the camera will then get power all day long. It's all getting powered from my Nakwa battery, which powers my fish finder and now my camera, and it has no problems doing both for multiple hours out in the water. So far, I'm liking this. It's actually sealed here, so the kayak got rained on here the other day before I put the tarp on it, and it's, as you can see here, open it up, and it's dry in here, which is most important. So this is how I have everything rigged up at the front for camera purposes. Here inside the front hatch, it's pretty small, and I'll open it up, and you can see in here, hopefully you can see in here, we got all the wiring in here. It's really easy to access underneath the front sides in here to, do any kind of mounting in here. So if you're going to put any other kind of mounts, you do have easy access underneath here to get your hand in there to do all of that. Even though the hatch itself is small, there's quite enough room in here to reach around to do any kind of, running wires and whatnot. One thing that I do want to point out that I don't like is that this seal right here is actually a foam. It's not a rubber gasket. I kind of feel like this is a little bit cheap right here. I would prefer to have a rubber gasket that does all the sealing. If you look at the top of the cap here, there's nothing on it. So this foam is really the only thing that is meant to seal off water from getting in here. Again, for this price of a kayak, why not just put a rubber ring on there? I feel like that would give a better seal. I haven't noticed water in here just yet, so maybe this will suffice, but for me, peace of mind, I think they could have gone a little bit better there and put a rubber ring gasket around there. Let's talk about here. I don't have the trolling motor in. It's stored in my car right now. You've all seen that. It sits in here, you click it. There's plenty of videos that kind of cover that, right? I just want to cover actual boat. Let me share with you kind of like one of the big first issues I had, and it was a real big pain to deal with, which was running the transducer. Now, if you could see here, part of the problem, actually the big problem, was that this 3-way through hole that Old Town has built in here is too small. It's maybe 1 inch in circumference, and all of these modern day bigger fish finders here, and I'm running a Raymarine Element, as you can see here. Here are the connectors, right? One's for the cable, one's for the transducer. These have like these outer rings that when you go to plug them in, seal, right? The connection. These won't go through that. They wouldn't go through that little hole. And so I was stumped for hours to figure out what I was going to do as an alternative. So what I ended up deciding to do, which I feel like I shouldn't have to do this. They could have simply made this hole bigger. Or what they could have done is change the way their through holes are made. The way their through holes are made is that when you pull the cap off, there's an inner part that is a full hole, and you have to run the cable through it. And because it's such a small circumference, you can't fit those connectors through it. And so you're really stuck. So that really disappointed me. I was really disappointed overall with the three-way through holes that Old Town provides on this kayak everywhere, even here. There's no way I could have ran my transducer cables and fish finder power cable through here. So I had to pop my own hole, which I still don't have. I had to order a Hobie three-way through hole so that I can finally seal this up. So I've gone out in the water with a big hole in my kayak so far just to do the water trials. So this was a big disappointment. This is a big disappointment for me. So what I ended up doing was running up the cable, tucking it under here on the side, running it up the left side, and doing it this way. It's out of the way of the trolling motor. All right, so if you are planning to do this, you have to run it up either one of the sides, and it won't interfere with seating the trolling motor and having that function as required. Then what I did here is I actually ended up having an extra Hobie regular through hole that makes more sense, because if you're familiar with the Hobie through holes, they have a cutout slit. So you don't actually have to run the cable through it itself. You just put the wire through that spacing and get you pick the little rubber seal gasket that fits it, and then you just jam it in there and it's sealed. So this is what I had to do. I had to punch a hole in my new kayak just to do this specifically. It would have been nice if their built-in three-ways were just bigger and provided, more opportunity. I kind of feel like the Hobie through holes are probably the best implementation of a through hole. So this is what I had to do for this. Now, before I even got to this part, another big headache, and now this isn't anything to do with Old Town. This is simply going to be an issue with any kind of fish finder that you have. Now, for all of us that are running these bigger transducers, again, this is the Raymarine Element that has HV. It's an equivalent to like what you would find in a Humminbird Megavision, I believe that's what they call it. But a lot of these transducers are big, right? As you can see here, it's a pretty big one. And the mount that came with the Raymarine HV transducer was actually too big for the mounting plate here on the 136, right? In fact, when I first connected this, the transducer sat a good, maybe about 3 to 4 inches lower. So it was actually lower than the kayak itself. And so when I laid it on the floor, the transducer was actually the weight of the kayak was resting on the transducer. And I immediately saw that and like, okay, this is gonna be an issue. So for a lot of guys that are gonna be in a similar situation, what you need to do, and what I did, is get a Dremel tool, and I dremeled the plastic. I might have shaved off close to 2 inches off of the plate that the transducer from Raymarine came on, just so that I can get it level here. And now my transducer is in line and just at level with the rest of the kayak, that when I rest the kayak here, the actual kayak, the front of the kayak here, is taking on the weight, not the transducer. And I mean, it's by like a hair. And that was as short as I can have trimmed it. So if you, again, if you go to install your transducer, if the mounting bracket that the transducer that it comes with is plastic, get a Dremel tool and just shave the top down until you get it short enough that you can seat it up at least level with the front of the kayak, and you won't have that issue. Another big concern and thing that I'm really not liking with the transducer, there's actually two things. One thing I really like and one thing I don't like. One thing I don't like is that it's fully exposed here, because if you are someone that fishes inland, say some lakes where there's a lot of timber, stumps, stuff in the water, potentially you can get this thing whacked up pretty good. And that is gonna be a main concern for me. Now, fortunately, I mostly fish Lake Michigan, which is big open water. I'm not gonna really run into that issue, but those times where I do go inland for like crappie in some of these lakes where there's a lot of submerged trees and stumps, those are gonna be times where I'm gonna be a bit more cautious and wary that I don't go over something that smacks this thing around. Now, it's in there really good. It's not going anywhere, but the point is, if I hit something fast enough and hard enough, what could happen? Could it break the plastic? What could happen here? Maybe a third-party company like Burley Pro makes some kind of cover for this, but I would like to see this thing kind of enclosed more. Maybe they could have extended this V shape where then it could have sat inside of more of a protective area. Those are some of the things I thought about it. But one thing I really do like about this transducer is the fact that it is forward of the trolling motor, and it makes this thing a lot better to vertically jig out of, because you can drop your lure pretty much right here from the side of it, vertically down, and you can really see your bait down in the water as you vertically jig up and down. I just did it on my initial day out in the water. I was able to do it very, very easily, and I can see this improving vertically jigging for fish of any kind of species that you're onto greatly. One thing that's different on the Hobie is that the transducer in the Hobie is just behind the seat. So anytime you mark fish on the bottom, you've already passed them up, which makes vertically jigging for them very hard, for the fact that you've already passed those fish, and for the fact that, you know, you're not gonna be able to see your bait if you drop it in front of you because the transducer is behind you. All right, moving along here. Some of the things I added onto the rails here. I really stand by and love the Yak Attack Omega Pro rod holders. They are rock solid. I love the design of them. This implementation, this lock and load system, is, in my opinion, some of the best out there, if not the best system. So I have the lock and load system here. I just stick the rod holders, the Omegas in here, lock them down, and I'm good to go. I got another one on this side. And then over here, I picked up the Yak Attack paddle holder, since I will need a paddle for the kayak when I can't use the trolling motor, say when I'm coming into shore or docking or whatnot. So I have that there. And of course here, my Raymarine element is rigged up. This is my first time using this. I love the Axiom, which is what I run on my Hobie Pro Angler, which is under the tarp right there. But the element is impressed me so far. There's a lot of big differences between the two, and I might even do a video kind of outlining that. But for what it is, the hypervision, really impressive with the clarity of the down vision, side vision, even the 3D that's built into this. All-in-one transducer makes it a great bang for buck fish finder, arguably on the market, with a quad core processor. I'm not affiliated with Raymarine. Hey, Raymarine, I would love to do something with you guys because I just really love your products. I have 2 of them now, and I've been running them for some years now. But it's just my honest opinion, man. These fish finders get overlooked by some of the other more well-known brands like Lowrance and Humminbird. As we go over here, that's pretty much the what I've added to the kayak. Pretty simple so far, and that was my goal with this one, was to keep it pretty simple. As we go over here, we've got the seat, pretty standard. It's comfortable. If Hobie seats are the standard in the pro anglers, the standard pinnacle, if it's a 10 out of 10, I would definitely give this seat about a 8.5. It's right up there. It's really good. This is just a personal thing for me. I'm just so used to the armrest on the chairs of the Hobie, and this one doesn't have it. So that's just more of a me thing. It's just I have to get used to not having my armrest to just leave my arms on. So right now my arms are just kind of flailing away, trying to figure out what to do with myself. Since I'm not paddling, I'm not even pedaling, I'm just clicking the remote to turn up and down the speed on the trolling motor. So I got to find something to do with my arms and my hands. Over here, you have the little dry hatch storage place, which I keep a couple of things in here. Especially what I would recommend for you guys is to leave your kill switch in there. So you never forget it at home. It's in the boat. So that way, man, it would be devastating to go out to the lake, have everything except for your kill switch, and then you can't even use the motor at all. One thing that is I think an issue with the design here is that when you go to open up and you're sitting in your seat here, this thing won't fully open up. When you sit in it, it rubs against the side of the seat, and it made it harder for me to kind of open up. It catches on this thing. So when this thing is fully pushed back, so when the chair is fully reclined here, the lid catches and rubs. See, it's kind of doing it right now. See how it's catching it and it's folding it down? So I think this is a design issue. It's a little too close to this and rubbing the side. Not a deal breaker, but something to be aware of. Moving along to the back, this is where I did most of my add-on work here. There's a good amount of space between the back rod holder and to where this part comes up and where they have their own built-in gear tracks. I put an 8-inch gear track here and on the other side, if you can see it over there. And the reason why I wanted to do this is because I absolutely love the Hobie H rail. I'm sorry, the H crate. And I knew I wanted this to be in this kayak. And one of the things I love about this is that I can clip it to the little eyelet that I bought from Yak Attack. And I can leave this in the kayak while I'm transporting it because it's attached here and attached here. And then I just put the bungees over it. It's not moving. It's shaking the whole kayak. And then means I can leave my tackle boxes in here while I'm traveling to and from. It's one less thing that I have to kind of put in the car, unload out of the car, put it in the kayak. 8 inches is perfect back here if you wanted to add another gear track. So a lot of questions about that as far as how much space you had, but 8 inches is good to go for there. And then from here, it's all the regular stuff that comes with the kayak, although I did add the Yak Attack tie downs right here because I could put one of my angle coolers back here, one of the smaller ones, for say if I'm gonna do like a day trip or anything, I can attach it back here, has some anchor points for it, and we added that. And then the rest of the kayak is pretty much this big old rudder, big old thing right here. One little pro tip is don't forget to remove the bungee here once you get on the water, otherwise you won't be able to pull your rudder down. I did that on my first day out. Little things that you got to kind of just take note of as you are learning this new kayak here. The other thing I want to show you, one last install that I did was I added a Mighty Mount right here to this corner. It actually fits perfectly here or on the other side near the dry box. You can fit a Mighty Mount. Now, I will warn you, it's not easy to get underneath there to secure the nuts to the bolts. It was quite a challenge. It's doable, but it's not easy, all right? The reason why I have this here is because when I am on Lake Michigan and running my lead core, I like my lead core to shoot straight off the back. And for this positioning right here, I can put my lead core line right out here, shoot it straight off the back of the kayak. And so that is why I have this mount right here for that purposes solely. So that is really the walkthrough of the rigging that I did. Not a lot of it, but really I think the hardest part for anyone with this kayak is going to be the transducer install. Figuring out if the mounting plate that comes with your transducer is going to be short or shallow enough that the transducer sits up into the kayak and not lower than it, so that it sticks out past the line or the hull of the kayak, so that when you lay it on the floor or whatever, all the pressure isn't being put on the transducer. And if you do, again, use a Dremel tool. If it's plastic, to shave off the top. You got to kind of just mod it yourself. That's what I did. Overall, I'm liking it. Now, there are a few things that I did mention that are a big change that I'm trying to figure out. It's, with what you get with the trolling motor here, to have that spot lock ability and have the power of the Minn Kota motor taking you around, which is very powerful. I only ever went up to 4.5, and it was hauling across the lake. So I haven't even pushed it to like 10, the max speed. Not yet anyway. But I feel the power in it, 45-pound thrust, I feel it. The other thing about this is that the way it's laid out, and I'll show you, right? You've got the trolling motor up in front. You got tons of deck space here, and it's very firm. Different than Hobie's, the deck, you can feel it give because it's hollow underneath. This thing is solid. It can jump on here and it doesn't flex. And I'm a big guy. It doesn't flex. With all of this room, and because the trolling motor takes up a lot of space towards the front, I'm used to having my fish catching bag on the hood of my Hobie where I can throw my salmon in. Right now, I need to figure out where I'm gonna put my catch bag because there's just simply no room at the front. I could lay it flat on the deck in between my feet, but then it just kind of takes up space where I could just put my feet at and relax. So it's a little bit of an inconvenience. I can't really put it, now there's a ton of room back here, but I wouldn't put it this far back because I'll have rods in the way. So now I'd have to fight with my rods to reach back here to grab it, to pull it all the way towards the front. So I need to figure something out. You know, maybe I can fit it right directly behind me. Anyway, these are just things that I've noticed that I need to kind of figure out, since it's a new kayak and it's different from what I'm used to. I just gotta decide how I want to lay everything out. And I think that's pretty typical for any kayak you get if it's new, kind of learning it and seeing how to best efficiently set it up. And one last thing I do want to share with you is that you can steer this kayak two ways. One with the iPilot remote, using the buttons on it to steer the trolling motor left and right, or you can use the foot pedals here with the rudder to turn. Now, what I will say is, in my first impressions of this on the water, I felt like I liked the pedals more because I was able to do kind of incremental turns, not so hard, where with the remote, when I click left or right, it kind of, the motor would just kind of take a little further, more of at a harder angle than what I wanted to kind of turn at. So I think for more precision controlling, you'll want to go with the rudder and the foot pedals for your turns. Maybe if you're in a different situation where you need to turn sharply to get on something, then I would use the trolling motor controls to turn it left and right to do that. And that's pretty much the last of this review. Pretty straightforward, man. I'm really impressed. Very, very stable, on par with what my Pro Angler is. Gets me on the water. Spot lock is incredible. And there are a couple of things that you do need to be aware about, and some things that I hope Old Town can rework in future models, especially when it comes to the through holes. Make them bigger, put some plastic seals in the front hatch and not the foam. Not crazy about the foam. I'm really enjoying this. I look forward to getting it out in the water some more and showing you guys what it can do on the water. If you like this review, any questions, leave it in the comments below. I thank y'all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace, y'all.